when I was walking around during the sessions, the Knowledge Expedition, I heard so many times the same words that you're gonna hear now. And those patterns that we use, those methods and practices, sometimes they look overlapping and they seem like you hear them over and over from different angles. And what we're gonna speak about here is using Harvest for design in a very strategic way. And I know that Tracy already talked about it, we talked about it. But the way that we're going to explain here is to support you on what's going to come next as the Designing for Eyes direction. And we're going to explain Harvest in a way that supports you work with this paper later for the meetings, engagements that will happen soon in real life. So to start with that, I'd like to invite Isabel to explain a little bit what we mean when we say harvest.
So first question, why do you think we use the word harvest? Can I just have two ideas, just like anyone? Yes, yes.
Like harvesting food.
Yes, great.
Fruits.
I'm thinking you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow.
Yeah, so harvesting food and reap what you sow. This is like the farmer metaphor, right, of harvesting. And the reason that we often use the farmer is because it's related to what Tracy was actually talking about on the first day, which is a living system. When we're talking about harvesting, we're not saying outcomes and results necessarily, because we're talking about a system that's actually alive. In case that metaphor is like the metaphor you've heard every single time, I'll give you one more metaphor. And if you came to my session, you've already heard it, so you can just feel the resonance. So I think that oftentimes when people are in process, they focus on the meeting, the event, the thing in the center, what you're going to do. Does anyone here have the practice of karate or cutting through a wooden board? Can I see a hand raise? Karate or like cutting through wooden boards? Okay, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to use this metaphor so you can check me. If you focus on the board, will you cut through it? Right. So in the same way, Monica Neeson, who's one of the kind of grandmothers of the art of harvesting, once explained to me that in harvesting, you move from your question, your idea, your purpose, and you look beyond into what could the possible outcomes from that be. So you honor that this meeting is actually happening in the middle. You have all of the pre-work, you have the event itself, and then you have all of the possibilities of harvest. And so we're inviting you into this teach. We're inviting you into this harvesting mindset that's moving from inquiry into action and using your method as a way to support that.
So what we're talking here is really about process design, strategic process design. And that thing in the center that she was drawing, there is a circle, but as we talked about yesterday already, that's the real shape, right, of an engagement. It opens, there's this phase of emergence, growth zone, and it closes into something concrete. That's the process design that we're looking for. We're gonna walk exactly the same steps that you're gonna have in the template that you're gonna be working with very soon. But to make it more tangible and concrete for you, we're going to be telling a story about these steps. So you can really see how it's going to look like with what you're designing. And Viola is going to be our storyteller. She's going to be sharing a real engagement that she was leading with her team. Chris was also in it, right? Yeah, with Chris and a team in Australia. So let's start, and if you have any burning question, you need to interrupt or anything, you can do it. We'll try to move fairly quick because many of you already heard many of those points, and we don't have that much time. So the first thing that we need to think about is the context. So So this is if you're talking from a harvest perspective, from the living system perspective, this is the soil. This is where you're gonna plant your seed. This is where you have to understand what's there, what's possible for you. The number one, the context. And the first step that you walk when you're thinking about context is the need. That in the template we're framing with a question. Why is this meeting really needed? Why is this meeting really needed? There are way too many meetings happening in the world that don't really need to happen. We don't want that anymore. So the need is something that really, this meeting is not something you have to go to your team and push for because you think it's so important, but maybe it's only you. It's something that we're just waiting to happen. What is it that is happening there in that field that is calling to exist that you're going to invite a meeting for? It's going to resonate with the people that will come later. Viola, what was the need? What was the context of this engagement?
So, I almost told you first how it ended, but I'll keep that secret and we'll see what design you would come up with in here. So, imagine sitting in a large company in a meeting with like middle manager that leads a department, and it's a huge bureaucracy. Probably not really big enough to read this, but it's a huge bureaucracy, and the manager, she tells me, I have to do this thing that they call here a consultation for change. And usually we do that in a way that terrifies me. You get a document with all these hierarchical boxes. We don't talk to our people. Some managers meet and make some rules and send it out to the people, and people don't like it. So I am fed up with this, and I want to do things differently. The change I make might also have the consequences. Some people are newly hired and others need to leave the organization.
A second very important step in context is what are the people that are going to be there? Who will show up? Because all the design you're going to do afterwards needs to fit the needs of who? Of those people who come. To get clarity on who's coming. And also think of who can host. To call a meeting that is meaningful to you, you don't necessarily need to be the host. You can call for help. You can call for support. You can get someone who can hold that if it's too big for you. So who is going to be there? Who's going to host? Viola?
So,
Sorry?
The manager says, I have a team of about 30 people. It's really, really hard to get them all the way out of their offices and actually bring them into one room, but we'll see if we manage it, that some people can come. So around 30 probably, but we don't really know. There might also be some others coming from another department because they've heard about us doing like kind of innovative, weird things doing here, and like my peers want to see what we're doing. So maybe around 5, but who knows? Okay, so you're also training some harvesters in the organization, so there are some apprentices. Wouldn't that be a great opportunity for those harvesting and visual facilitation apprentices to also show up? So we have around 20 to 40 people. Oh, and I, the manager, will be the caller, and you, Viola, please focus.
The next step of discovering this context is where this is going to happen. So many times people invite you to host a meeting and there is already a set space. Sometimes you can choose, many times you can't. You have to adapt to the place. Like here at the Rotundan hosting the training. The dynamics is very different having two spaces that we move from. We have to design the whole training thinking of that. And in your story, Viola, where did this happen?
So, given the fact that this is a very spontaneous idea and we want this to happen in 3 days, we are really struggling with the venue. we might be able to tell you one day before, but we're hoping to get the convent, which is just a 20 minutes taxi ride for all our stuff from here, and has a really hot room here in Australia. But maybe we can get some fans.
And the next step is the duration. For how long this is going to happen. So many times when you get an invitation or when you want to invite, you need to think about what's the reasonable time that you can get those people together. People have very busy schedules, or some things cannot go for too long or not too short. And so what was the duration?
So yeah, you're totally right. People are really busy, and it's hard for me as a manager to get to the rationale to actually bring so much people out of their usual work. So all we can make possible is one afternoon, maximum 3 hours. It might turn out to be just 2 in the end, but all this is also part of a larger journey. So we are looking at one afternoon out of a journey that was about 2 months long. To start with.
Okay, so once we have this context set, we can start thinking more deeply about the design. And there's usually a play attention. Remember when I gave the teaching on the breath? That you're starting here and moving there. There's always this play of direction and something pulling you, something pushing you. There's this play between beginning and end. And this beginning, we always start with a meaningful purpose. What is the purpose of this meeting? Many times in real life, like I remember when I was working with Joe, his team in China, we were hosting an open space, a 1.5 day open space for more than 100 people in Daimler, Mercedes. And it took us months to be able to get the purpose of. He said, "Can you come and host an open space?" What's the purpose? My manager told us. Okay, can you talk to your manager? No. Yeah. So, luckily, here we have all the colors, and you're connected to the purpose. And in your case, Viola, what was the purpose of this meeting?
So, she says, we now want to learn about change in the organization from and with the people. And even had a sense of peer review, and she called it like, we want to learn about change within our organization from the emerging future. And we want to kind of prototype doing things different. Kind of unattached. We want to try something new. So purpose is trying something new and learning about change.
What is there on the other side?
Harvest.
Harvest. And there are 4 levels to look at here. So there's the individual level, what each one of those people who will be in the room, individually, and for them as a collective. But also in a very intangible level and the tangible level. So I usually recommend people to start with the intangible level because it's very easy to get caught up in the deliverables, in the report, or in those beautiful visuals. But you really need to remember that this is serving something, and this intangible harvest usually connects directly to the purpose. It's really a distillation into how this purpose is going to look like when it's materialized into something meaningful. And then you can get the report, you can get the drawings, you can get anything that is really necessary. In your story, Viola, what was the harvest that you were aiming for?
So I asked her, what do you want to get out of this? If you imagine this like you're growing something, what do you want to harvest from what you're doing here, given your purpose? And she says, I want a narrative about our team and our future, written down. I also need a rationale why do we actually need a new change practice here? So imagine one manager having a vision to lead from the emerging future and her colleagues not yet. So she wants to kind of go ahead and find some rationale for that. She also needs a report that we get from templates and what people say. And she wants those templates, so like detail. And she would also really like something visual, but not made from me as an external. She would like visuals from the people from within the organization. So that's the tangible part. On the intangible side, she wants connection, trust, and inspiration for new ways of changing more gracefully within the organization. And an experience of what that could look like, a possibility of what that might look and feel.
So the next natural step is to go back before you can really start the design, the concrete design, how the meeting is going to really look like. It's very helpful to think about what's the overarching question for this meeting. We sometimes call it here calling question, if that sounds too abstract. I think overarching question is pretty understandable. So what is a question that you have to keep in mind throughout this whole time? What is the big question that you're trying to answer with this gathering? Viola. And also this question, when you get later for the invitation, when you're gonna invite everyone in the room, this question is the attractor. Usually when you write an invitation, it's very helpful to have a very powerful question that attracts everyone to come. So spending time looking into this is very helpful.
So talking about powerful questions, that's really interesting because I'm kind of hoping I would have said in the powerful questions session from yesterday, just at that moment when we had a few days to craft a question. So this is interesting. I'm learning something here. At that point in time, the questions were, how can we be more conscious of our change practices, and what may be its next evolution?
Okay, so now you're set for design. Now comes the juicy part, when you're actually gonna get all the bits and pieces that can get together. There's gonna be a lot of breaths happening within this conversation probably. And so you're gonna think about which methods. So the people who are with Tracy in the session now, we talked about what kind of methods fit. It depends, right? What kind of methods usually fit in what part of the process? You're gonna think about that. What kind of questions? Because each method is gonna have a question on itself guiding it. What's the timing? How much time do you need? Because it's very easy to overcrowd your design, and it's really important to leave some spaciousness for something to change, and also to be clear about the roles. Who's doing what? Very, very important to know, so the team can be aligned. Usually, we always start with a framing, opening, so people feel safe and understand what's going to happen there. So you walk through the steps of the agenda, whatever will help people to feel safe. And then you have the check-in, so people can, it's really helpful if everyone has a chance to talk to at least one person about a meaningful question to them when they arrive. Remember what we did here when you arrived in the train. We invited you to share why you're here, talking to someone. This is something that I've used many times, many practitioners use. Get people to talk to each other, to see each other. Because if you open that for once, you really help people to speak again. If you spoke once, it's much easier to speak again. And then you usually end with a checkout. It's really weird if okay, meeting is over, bye-bye. It's nice if you have a closure. If you get the harvest that you got at the end, you share and do a checkout. So you have a closure, you have a sense of finishing something together. And you can express the learnings, the gratitude, the next steps. Checkout. Or what happened here in the middle? Which method did you use and how did it go?
I'm kind of curious what people would do. I mean, just some ideas, like given the little context you have, but you have some fun. Like, what pops up for you? What would you do?
Find out the values of the organization.
What method would you use for that? Do you have an idea?
Maybe appreciative storytelling.
Yes.
I would have said that.
Any other ideas?
Well, as I heard the purpose, it was really about experiencing something new. And in that sense, any of the methods would probably be new.
Any other burning idea?
Yeah, like the second part of the question was, what's the next evolutionary step of our change culture? So you could do the inquiry to find out like what's our actual practice now, and then I don't know, with the World Cafe maybe try to find out what could the future look like.
Okay, cool. So, given the larger context of this, I revealed from the beginning that this was embedded in a 2-month process. That, of course, makes like this question to you now more complex. A World Cafe and I thought that was a message from the cosmos now. Perfect method for this case. So in this larger process, a World Cafe and an appreciative inquiry had happened during the 3-day event before. So, and as they asked for something new deliberately or beyond those things, like we did World Cafe, Open Space, and appreciative inquiry, and they were kind of familiar with checking in and out. So what we did was a collective story harvest to distill out the change practices and what are the stories that are alive in this group of people around change, and what is kind of seated in there. So we prompted 3 people to tell their story with tell a story of a time when you were gifted or challenged by change within the organization. I wish I had more papers. It turned out that we had 2.5 hours for that. So there were 3 story circles. People came, we framed, we did a little check-in, splitting the story circles that they already went into when they arrived into, and just telling you how are you arriving. Little check-in to move quickly into the storytelling, introducing the process. And we had arcs like what were our arcs? Something around tensions between old and new. What is the change path that you hear in those stories? What individual and collective practices around change do you hear? So I can't recall all of them. Like what allies and support shows up in the moments of change, and they were different moments of change. So they had been invited by the manager, the caller, and did it basically like we did today. What was different there was that the same arcs met, and we found the patterns. Those were harvested in templates, and one of the visual recording apprentices did a graphic recording when everyone reported back. and we had a scribe coming from the team that sat there literally with a laptop and typed everything up to like, facilitate report writing. And then we checked out. So we didn't do 2 rounds or anything at the time. And then we checked out with a question, which went approximately like this: with what curiosity for further conversation are you leading this afternoon?
And the last one, sorry, linked to what you just said, is what are my next steps? So in this case here of the template, that meant after you made the design, what are the next steps you need to do so you can be prepared for this meeting? Who you need to talk to, all the checklists that you need to do. And those are all positioned exactly how they are positioned on the template. And maybe you could just share what were the next steps after. What happened after that?
So what happened afterwards? That first, like, people retreated and worked with the harvest, and lots of internal conversations happened in smaller groups, in smaller teams, and amongst managers, and amongst people in the organization teams, etc. That I was not part of. I just know that they happened, and that was all in December, and we're actually in 2 weeks having a Zoom call with people from that organization, and people that participated, and the manager, and people from the larger journey of like throughout the month to come together again after like a period of digestion that they called in after all that happened. So I don't know exactly what's happening right now, and I hope to know more in a few weeks.
What's a Zoom call?
Oh, sorry. That is an online platform. Who asked the question? I don't know who that's called it. It's like Skype, but it's more adapted to like larger groups of people coming together and having online meetings. Is that down below?
Thank you, Viola, for sharing the story. I hope we're trying to support you on seeing how is it going to look like the end of this day and tomorrow the whole morning. This is exactly what you're going to be doing today. You're going to support each other, walk through the same steps, and hopefully you're going to do an amazing process like Viola did and learn a lot.
Let's see how it turns out.
And so I'd like to pass it on to